Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, The Best Fundraisers of 2021, Creative Campaigns That Raised More. Well, the new year is on its way, and if 2021 has taught nonprofits anything, it's the need to stay flexible, creative, and innovative in order to continue reaching and inspiring donors. So today we are going to take a look back at some creative and fun and successful fundraisers to learn how you can build impact going forward into 2022. Our fundraising experts will dive into not only what different nonprofits did this past year to raise more funds, but also the tools and strategies that increased reach, impact, and giving. Now, before we get started, please know we welcome your participation and are here to answer your questions. So be sure to submit them into the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. We do have fundraising experts standing by to answer questions both during the webinar and at the end when we will hold an open Q&A session with our presenters. Now, we hope you are inspired by today's presentation, and as a quick reminder, we will be sending out the recording and slides to our registrants afterwards. Now, today's webinar is presented by MobileCause, and MobileCause understands the ever-changing landscape of fundraising that your nonprofit must navigate while still trying to reach your goals. Here at MobileCause, we not only provide comprehensive online and event fundraising solutions, but also the one-on-one strategy from dedicated fundraising specialists that help simplify your effort and maximize your results. We even provide the industry's best support team available to you 24/7, so it's there when you need it most. MobileCause has become the trusted fundraising partner for nonprofits looking to scale their fundraising quickly and efficiently without paying any transaction fees. Together, we can grow your nonprofit like never before. Now, let me introduce you to today's fundraising experts. Sarah Baker is a senior digital fundraising strategist for MobileCause with a proven track record of helping nonprofits meet their financial goals while amplifying their reach within their communities. She is responsible for creating and managing powerful fundraising campaigns guided by her expertise in social media, online fundraising, strategic planning, marketing strategy, cross-channel communications, donor relations, and more. Sarah's work has enabled hundreds of MobileCause customers to successfully accelerate and increase their fundraising and engagement efforts. Michael Buckold is an account executive for MobileCause for 6 years now, and when he's not helping nonprofits exceed their fundraising goals, he's spending time with his wife and 3 daughters. He prides himself in helping clients get creative in how they engage supporters. And I'm Scott Couchman. I'm the training manager here at MobileCause. And today's agenda is going to take a look back at what we've seen happening in 2021 and what strategies your nonprofit should bring with you into the new year. Sarah and Michael will share some excellent 2021 fundraising campaigns and events that really crushed their goals and the tools and strategies that got them there. All right, now before we begin discussing the best fundraisers of 2021, creative campaigns that raised more, we do have a quick poll question for everyone. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. Sometimes it takes a few seconds. Let me give that a try here. And while it's launching, I'll go ahead and read it off for you. The question is, what are your spring 2022 fundraising event plans? And our choices are, you have in-person events planned, you have virtual events planned, you have hybrid events planned, and you're in the final stages of deciding what to do on the fifth one is you're holding off to see what the future holds. So choose the one that best represents where you are in that. Let's see how those results are coming in. All right. Oh, got some good answers coming in. All right. And it looks like we're slowing down. We'll give it another couple of seconds. All right, let me go ahead and close this out. Yeah, so that's interesting. So first off, congrats for those of you. It looks like a lot of you are having those in person events planned. Very few of you are looking at that virtual, and a good amount of you are doing hybrid, and also looking at where things are. So no, interesting results to see this. So no matter what you have in the works, today's webinar um, will bring you some actionable strategies and tools that you can use right away. So let's go ahead and dive into it, and join me in welcoming Sarah Baker to kick off our discussion on what we've learned from fundraising in 2021. Let me give control over to you, and over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Scott. So no matter what your plans are for 2022, I think one of the most important things to focus on is how to set yourself up for success and drive traffic to your fundraising campaigns in the next year. So based on some industry reports, 2021 was a good year for fundraising in the nonprofit sector, all things considered. So some of these encouraging stats from the nonprofit times, including the number of donors being up by 10%, fundraising dollars being up by 6%, and a retention of new donors going up by 13.6%. So now I want to dive into a few success stories from some of our customers. Success, of course, being defined not only by the amount of dollars raised, but in terms of engagement, the number of new donors, and of course, the difference being made in each community supported by these amazing nonprofits. The first example I want to look at is called Maimonides Medical Center. And why we love this particular organization is that over 3 events, they were able to raise $2.5 million. So keep in mind, Maimonides is a well-connected and well-established medical facility in New Jersey. So of course that helps with that big dollar amount. But Maimonides used the Mobile Cause event page to host each of these various events. So using their event page, they featured all of their event details in one convenient place for their donors and supporters. So it made it easy for them to find out about the event, as well as to view the live stream of their event during the actual event, as well as afterwards in case they weren't able to go to it on the day of. Another thing I really love about the Maimonides event pages, which you'll see over the next couple of slides as well, is that they pushed multiple calls to action on their event page. So they offered the opportunity to donate, the opportunity to make a birthday wish, and the opportunity to sign up for a newsletter. So multiple ways to engage with your supporters as well as to raise donations. Another really great thing, which you can see on this slide that we're looking at now, is they showcase their progress towards their goal so that their donors would be apprised of how much money is being raised over these 3 events to really see, where their donations can help out. One of the other things I wanted to mention with Maimonides too is on their event page, they really took advantage of being able to showcase the impact that these donations, this $2.5 million would have in their community by featuring not only video, but images and quotes from their beneficiaries. So here you can see some of those examples again. So you can see they featured some videos, including the impact videos again from their beneficiaries talking about the impact that Maimonides had in their lives. They also featured information about their various heroes that were being featured at the different events. So you can see they were able to put their picture, their name, their title, all of these things, making it fun and interactive for their participants. So the next example I wanted to feature is the Mona Foundation. So the Mona Foundation is one that I've worked with before, And something really great that the Mona Foundation was able to do was reduce their overhead costs and increase engagement by switching from an in-person event to a virtual event. So, of course, at the time that they did this, this was a necessity, but this really taught them a valuable lesson for their future events. By switching from a solely in person event to a virtual event, or maybe a hybrid event in the future, they were able to engage with their supporters from all over the world. So that allowed them to, reach people who might not have been able to attend an in-person event, or maybe they couldn't necessarily attend the day of the event, but they could still participate in different aspects of their event, like their silent auction leading up to their event. Another thing that they did really well too is by keeping their program short. So when you're thinking about your program, whether you're doing an in-person or virtual event, they were able to make it so that it was nice and concise, easy for people to take in, and not super overwhelming. One thing I do want to point out with this event is, of course, they were able to have a celebrity host and guest at their event, Rainn Wilson from The Office. And, while I have ran into Rainn Wilson one time at a local sandwich shop, I don't have that kind of pull with any celebrities. The celebrity I could probably get for my nonprofit would be the owner of a sandwich shop. But when you're planning your events, don't feel like you have to always have, a big name like Rainn Wilson or Jimmy Kimmel to have a successful event like Maimonides or Mona Foundation. Just keep in mind who in your community could help really share the impact of your nonprofit. And that might be a local celebrity like your mayor or CEO of a company that's really involved with your nonprofit, or even just having a beneficiary or one of your board members as the host or speaker of your event. So related to my point earlier about keeping overhead costs low, as well as encouraging supporters who aren't just located in your immediate community, I want to feature this hybrid event from Middle State Georgia University. So Middle State Georgia University, they held a 2-day event, so a multiple day event that offered many different ways to participate. So of course you could participate in person or virtually, as well as offering different levels that you could sign up for these various in-person and virtual events. So you could be a VIP, for example, at their welcome back luncheon or their cocktail event. So by doing this, they sold, uh, sorry, excuse me. So for these various levels, they sold tickets online. So they made it nice and easy to buy those tickets, which offered them contactless ways for people to check into their virtual event to, of course, reduce any person-to-person interaction that was not kind of welcome at the time, as well as just making it really easy for people to buy their tickets without having to, go in person to stand in a ticket line. They were able to buy their tickets all in one place on this event page that had all of the information about their event. Throughout their event, they offered ways for people to donate, like using text to give, as well as some online giving options directly on that event page. So the next example that I wanted to talk about is from the Edgewood Brooklyn Family Support Collaborative. So something I think that is really important to keep in mind, both for your in-person and virtual events, is making sure that you are prominently featuring your sponsors and taking advantage of any sponsorships or promotions that come your way. So again, this doesn't need to be sponsored by Nike or some big name brands. You can work with sponsors who are directly part of your community and who would want to associate themselves with your nonprofit. So the Edgewood Brooklyn Family Support Collaborative, they held a lot of small events leading up to their main virtual event, which was a breakfast. So these small events allowed them to have some kind of soft asks, that weren't super intense, as well as to give them the opportunity to sell tickets to their main event. The things that Edgewood did really well are kind of just going back to some of the basics. So they sent out email reminders. They made phone calls to their donors. As a digital fundraising strategist, really immersed in, social media and email marketing, I'm always pushing those things, but don't forget about the little things like making phone calls, especially to key donors, as well as businesses that you want involved as sponsorship. Some of the quote unquote old fashioned ways are still going to be super important for you to do. But going back to my favorite, social media, Edgewood also did this really well. They tagged their ambassadors, donors, and influencers in their community to make sure that those posts got seen. So we'd like to talk a lot about the social media algorithms, and a way to kind of work around them and make sure you get more eyes on your posts is to do things like tag these people. It not only helps your post get more seen and get likes, it also is going to encourage your sponsors, encourage your donors to reshare your posts, which is going to again help just drive traffic to your fundraising campaign to help you have a successful event like this example that we're showing to you now. So the next one that I want to show you is just going back to another Maimonides event page. So like I mentioned earlier, Maimonides had a couple of different events. So they had a different event page for each of these different events that showcased all of the specific details of that event. So each of these events had different sponsors. So on their event page, they featured these sponsors. They had links so that people could sign up to register to become a sponsor. They could see who else was sponsoring their event page by scrolling through the sponsor logos, clicking over to their websites. And of course, once you do sign some sponsors onto your event, you really do want to make sure that you're acknowledging them. So that includes putting their logo and links to their website on your event page, but also giving them shout outs during any live stream, or if you were having an in-person event, shouting them out in person, including their logos on any event materials that you might be giving out in person or digitally. So that could be on a PDF or on a brochure at the bottom of your email marketing campaign, as well as in those text messages that you're sending out. You might say, hey, thanks for attending the Battle of Brooklyn, sponsored by Cross River Bank. Just making sure that those sponsors really feel thanked and acknowledged so they continue to want to sponsor your events in the future. So circling back to Middle Georgia State University Foundation, we just wanted to show you, of course, that a example of their ticketing form. So again, if you want to hold an in-person event, you might still want to focus on having some contactless ways for people to both purchase tickets, purchase sponsorships, donate, check in, every way that they can interact with your nonprofit and your event. It's really great if you can kind of minimize the person-to-person interaction, as well as minimize, the paperwork and things you have to deal with. So by setting up a form to sell tickets and collect donations, you will make it really easy for everyone to just quickly enter in their cell phone, or excuse me, their contact information, usually on their cell phone. And, for me personally, I have all of my credit card information and all that stored on my various browsers. So when something's online, I can really easily just like click one button, buy a ticket without even having to think about it. Or even if you're having, a free event It's still just so much easier if I don't have to type in a million different little information, like my address and whatnot, because it's just already pre-filled in there. So, I just hope that you can take away from these various examples that we're going to continue going over into the second half of the presentation. But I just want you to take away from these that the most important things you can do to set yourself up for success is just make everything as easy as possible on your donors by showcasing all of your event information in one place, making it easy to do multiple things from buying tickets to making a donation all in one consolidated event page. So thank you so much, and I'll hand it back over to you, Scott.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And I love these ideas that these organizations have used, and showing us the different elements to it. So thank you for that. So as a reminder to everyone, the recording will be sent out after the session, so you can mine these ideas for yourself and adjust them to fit your own organization's needs. And also, don't forget, if you have questions, get those questions in for our Q&A session at the end. Always love to get those questions from you, and we can answer for you. And so now, for our next set of creative campaigns that raised more, we'll hand it over to Michael Buckolt. Over to you, Michael.
Hey, thanks a lot, Scott. One of the things I wanted to mention right off the bat is last year and where we've been since the pandemic, it's been so virtual fundraising centered. And I noticed in the poll earlier that we talked a little bit about going back to live events. Just because organizations are going to be going back to live events doesn't really mean that we're going to be giving up on virtual or online or some of the creative solutions that we've come up with in the past 20 months, whatever it's been. And so I want that to, kind of resonate with people, because I feel like we all have this impulse to get back to in-person events, but I think we have an opportunity here to really branch out beyond just the way things were. And I've seen so many creative solutions in this past year, and it's really exciting for me. The first example that I really want to share with everyone here, let's get it loaded up there, is American Leadership Forum. Now, what I love about the interpretation that most nonprofits have regarding mobile cause is they think of us in text to donate. That's normally the first thing that comes to mind. Well, in that same vein, right, the mobile being in the name of our company, is text messaging. And you have the ability for outbound communication. So you actually can engage donors and get them excited about fundraising, about what you're doing, and just a really direct line of communication. Now, what American Leadership Forum did really well is they set up an event page with an actual video from their campaign, and it had their campaign chairs and donor benefits kind of talking about what was so pertinent to that nonprofit. And what I am excited about in regards to the whole, the video in regards to storytelling, is it allows you to be so direct with your supporters. We've seen so many old-fashioned PayPal donation forms, things like that in the past. And what I think is great about video is it allows you to pull on the heartstrings at the moment it matters most, when a donor is about to pull out their credit card and make a donation. Now, what they also did that I was really impressed by is they had 7 giving levels. So they could capture their larger donors and their smaller donors. And what I really like about that is that it is a great way to not ostracize those donors that want to give a small amount. We've seen a lot of organizations take the name or the amount off of the fundraising thermometer so that you don't really want to make people feel embarrassed if they're giving $20 and the last person that donated gave $500. And that's a great way to have your overall fundraising thermometer rise without necessarily losing the momentum of getting everyone that's participating in the event pulling out their phone and making a donation. They also did an infographic that they shared that showed the specifics of that impact. And this is something I talk a lot about on demos when I'm conversing with nonprofits. You want people to have that give to get. They want to give you a donation, but you also want to give them a visual or some type of representation of what does that mean for the nonprofit. No donor that I've ever met wants to just refill the coffers of a nonprofit. They want to feel that that money is going towards a program or something that you're doing so that they can actually feel ownership over your success. Now, I mentioned earlier on the donor wall and the real-time thermometer, but this is another great way for you to showcase as donations are coming in. Now, a lot of nonprofits are a little apprehensive about that because they don't want to start from zero. And that's why I recommend any offline donations you receive the day of, before the event, you could enter those offline so they're reflected on the thermometer. And so when donations are coming in, there's momentum, right? If your goal is 100,000 and you received 25,000 in checks, you're already 25,000 or 25% of the way to your goal. And that gets people excited about giving 50 and 500 and all those different amounts. And the other big part about fundraising is using social media as a real tool that's at your disposal. Share success stories and sponsorship levels and all the different things that are going on. Now, another really exciting way that we've seen clients use MobileCause is in regards to peer-to-peer. When I would say probably 80% of organizations that I talk to, when they think of peer-to-peer, they think of the traditional 5K. But there are so many really exciting ways to use the technology for any example. I mean, this is a virtual event that happened, whereas you were socially distanced. They were able to launch a peer-to-peer campaign, and they did a 26.5-mile walk over a 6-week period. And what I think is really exciting about doing something like that is it creates a longer timeline. When you have a singular event that happens on one day, there's so much focus on that specific day. But when you launch something like this leading up to an event or as the campaign itself, you can actually follow along through the weeks and see the leaderboard and follow teams. And what this organization did that I just thought was so fun, and by the way, the organization is Mars Planet Foundation, is they did a unique event where each walk around town, I think it was one lap, was equivalent to a lap on the planet Mars. So it was a really fun and kind of a tongue-in-cheek way to get people excited and engaged, but also fit their brand as an organization. They also did weekly contests, whereas they did a crazy costume contest one week where you could win prizes, and Find Marty the Martian was another one, and Show Us Where Spring Has Sprung week. And what I love about this is not only are you getting more people involved, you're also getting more eyes on it, because with the Spring Has Sprung example, they shared pictures on social media, which in turn got more people involved. This is what we mean when we're talking about using social advantageously. This is not just an opportunity for you to spam all of your followers over and over again asking for donations. This is a way to engage them and make what you're doing exciting and kind of fit into what people enjoy, which is sharing pictures, engaging with friends and family, and participating in a really creative event. A great example of peer-to-peer is the GOAT Games. And they did, I think, a really cool individual and team volunteer example here. What they did is they set fundraisers, or they sent their fundraisers different campaign information via text. So like I mentioned in the very first slide there, is using mobile messaging is such a great tool to have a direct line to your supporters and volunteers. We're talking about a 98% open rate. 90% of those text messages are read within the first 3 minutes that they're received. So it's such a great and poignant way to communicate. Now, the GOAT Games raised $217,000 above their goal of 215. And what I really think is exciting about this is that they had all of these different teams competing with each other, and they created a way. So instead of me as an individual creating my own page and sharing it once or twice with friends and family, now as teams were competing, it became a little bit more of an exciting and exhilarating experience for those that were participating. They were on social, they were watching what was going on so that they could see, hey, you know what, team Y is beating team X. Let's really put in, share a little bit more so more people would be able to participate. And then each of the 9 participating animal sanctuaries got their own team page. So it was a great way to have that internal competition, which I just love. Now, MobileCause and GiveSmart are partnered under Community Brands. That is the main company that we are owned by. And what I love about that partnership now is that we have this direct way to offer online auctions mixed with all of the other amazing tools that MobileCause offers. And, Sarah and myself, we both have talked about these event pages. What I love about an event page is it can be a one-stop shop for everything pertaining to that event. So you can do your sponsorship and donations and registration, but also you can get your bidder ID and register for an auction. So not only can that event page be a place where people can donate, it can also be where they kind of congregate to look at the items before the event kicks off, to place bids, and to really get excited about the online auction and the experience. When you do a virtual gala with an online auction, it allows you to exceed your goals. But now that people are getting back to in person, it also allows people to bid from home. You don't have to be there in person with the old bid sheet that's on a table. You can bid on items from the comfort of your own home. And even though someone's there for the VIP experience, at the in-person event, you're still able to bid and compete and win items. And as the nonprofit, this becomes a really great way to get as many people involved to actually bid on items and to bid them up so you get a larger bid price on any of the items that you are putting forth. And this is kind of an example of, why GiveSmart is the perfect solution to pair with MobileCause, is because these two solutions are continuously integrating and making your life easier and easier. The main goal here is to have one main dashboard where you can actually manage all of this, whether it's a peer-to-peer event or an online auction or a live event. Any of those things can be managed from one place and integrated directly into your database and CRM. Now, what I think is great too is MobileCause bundles these together to put that forth to make it easy for you to have an annual license so you could have unlimited events or campaigns, no limit to the number of auctions or auction items. And this Elevate bundle that we've prepared, I think really allows an organization to put everything into one place. So instead of working with a multitude of vendors throughout the year and having all of these different systems operate in a silo, you've got one main source and one annual license fee that you're paying to manage all of that. And now, aside of saving money on having one vendor instead of a multiple, it's a lot less passwords and usernames to memorize as well. Now, I think another big part of the fundraiser experience is sharing and thanking your supporters. And by utilizing mobile messaging and the event page, you could have testimonials and thank yous that go out on the event page or via text to thank individuals. You could actually create a custom thank you message that once a donation is completed can actually ping that individual and say, "We couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for giving." We do automated tax receipting, so attached to that same thank you message is a PDF copy of their tax receipt. Now, let's say you have some major donors that you want to actually do a handwritten letter and send to them. You can just click print the tax receipt and put that together in a formal letter that you can send out to really have that personal touch. But what I like about using the online experience and doing things with video is it's an intimate connection with someone, right? It's a little bit different than the email that most of us are used to receiving from nonprofits. You actually can have the executive director saying thank you, and it feels personal and connected to the individual. So, I think one of the most important things that we're talking about here in thanking donors is not only doing it on a level where it's a text or an email, but it's doing and using social. Because the more people see that, my buddy, my colleague, my family member is donating or supporting a nonprofit, and the more we see them advocating and engaging with them, the more likely we are to look into them. And this goes back to that initial concept of having a video on a donation page. Let's say I'm just a random looky-loo that saw that my uncle donated to a charity and I saw online, them thank him. Now's an opportunity for me to just click on that link, see a little video there that's explanatory of who they are, and I could make a $25 donation. I can engage with them, and now I'm in their network, and now they've got an email and a phone number for me, so now they're building their Rolodex and their donor list. So it's all about using the tools advantageously for you as the nonprofit to really grow your donor base, but also to do so in an organized way so that it really is comprehensive to how you're fundraising, and it doesn't feel like you need to hire someone in order to accomplish this. This is something that any organization can manage, and we provide the support that really take you to that next level. All right, Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you, Michael and Sarah, both for sharing your expertise with us today and showcasing these great campaigns. And I know these examples and the accompanying strategies and tools are going to help a lot of nonprofits host their own successful fundraising events, whether it's right away in the new year or further off in the future. And we hope you're all looking forward to trying out some of these ideas in your own upcoming events. And as a quick reminder, we will be sending out our recording and slides to all of our registrants. In case you missed something and you'd like to go look back, we've got you covered. Okay, so let me check here. There we go. So before we go ahead and jump into our Q&A, we do have another question for you. And are you interested in learning more about MobileCause? Let me go ahead and open this one up. And are you interested in more? Our choices are you're interested in a one-on-one consultation with MobileCause, or are you just looking for more information about the MobileCause software and services? So let's get those answers in. All right, looks like it's slowing down. I'll go ahead and close that poll out. And now let's get into our Q&A. Again, if please feel free to submit any other questions that you have as we go along. We've got a few of these coming in already. Let's see. Our first one is for Sarah. And it is, would you recommend that we build out our event homepage entirely before sharing with supporters, or share and keep building it out as we get closer to the event?
That's a great question, Scott, and a question I actually get a lot when I'm working with nonprofits to build their event page. And I generally recommend let's get started with what we have available. So sometimes that means we start sharing our event page and it's a save the date. Maybe there's not yet even the option to buy tickets, but we have the bare minimum information to get our supporters excited about our event. You can continue to reshare the page and add new information. And as you're sharing it out on social media, even using these changes to incentivize people to click back over. Of course, you don't want to necessarily do it too sparse or too soon, but I definitely think there's room to continually update that event page with new information as it becomes available. Like as you get new sponsors in, you'll add those, you'll link back to their website, or as there are new ticket levels available or new video content, you can continue to update that even after you've already shared it out to your supporters and donors.
All right, great. Okay, so next question here, I want to go to Michael, and the question is: we've never used SMS or texting as a way of communicating with our donors. Is there a quote unquote like magic number on the amount of times to text them without becoming a nuisance?
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's like a magic formula on how to do that, but let's be honest, right? Like nobody wants to receive a daily reminder to donate to their local organization that they support. But what I do like is using messaging as keeping it information based, right? Give people updates, send out the newsletter, give them an opportunity to engage with you, and don't always make it about a donation. The donations will come, but what you really want to do is open that line of communication. If someone gave you $100,000 6 months ago and they're receiving communication on how far the program has come or things that you're doing, that's what they want, right? And they're going to continue to donate because they have that ownership over your success. But if you're constantly asking for a donation, eventually they're just going to opt out, right? They're no longer going to want to receive those. So I say keep it information based, but then allow them to donate and give them the opportunity to click on the link to support the organization.
Okay, great. All right, so next question here for Sarah. I'm curious on your answer as well here on this. If we're running an in-person event versus a hybrid versus fully virtual, is there anything you'd recommend we do differently on our event homepage?
There's pretty few things I'd recommend different for virtual versus hybrid versus fully in-person event. Your event page is always going to act as your online hub for all things related to your fundraising event. So for a virtual event, this might include a live stream video, whereas for your event page, you might have links to Google Maps with information on how to get to your venue, parking and driving directions, all things pertinent to an in-person event like dress code and places to stay if your event might require a hotel stay for some of your guests. But other than that, you're going to just use that event page to sell tickets or register people for the event, always offering the option for people to donate ahead of the event, and also, of course, offering a place to show your progress towards your goal. But the difference between the various events is actually going to be very little. The difference will really be just how you lay out the information and what your main call to action is. So whether that's encouraging people to tune in live or check back after an event to see your live stream, or to buy tickets ahead of time to attend that in-person event.
Okay, great. So I have another texting question here for Michael. Do organizations typically have to get permission from its supporters to send out text messages?
So what is really great for nonprofits, which isn't so great for for-profit companies, is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act allows nonprofit organizations to actually engage supporters as long as they have the opt-out button or the option on any of the messages that they send out. So again, anyone can opt out, right? They can always select, you're not going to be inundating people with messages that they don't want to receive. But what is great here is that if you've got a list of supporters and donors that are kind of in your realm of, phone numbers or lists that you have, Mobile Cause can actually take that list, scrub it, and verify if it's a mobile number or not, so that you've got a verified list of mobile numbers, and then you can use that to communicate. And like I said earlier, by keeping it, information based, it's really going to minimize the number of people that end up opting out.
Okay, that's great. And I'll just personally add a little bit on that one too. That I'm not sure if this has been shared out to you, Michael, but what one of the numbers that we've seen is when you add texting to your communication plan. So you're not like replacing it with something, you're just adding it. Here is another way to reach people. When you send that first message, they've never received a message from you before. You're going to get what we've seen around 2% of those people who are not interested in texting. So they do opt out. But after that, it's negligible on that number of opt out. So now you have your engaged audience by the 2% who say, nah, texting's not for me. Send me an email or something else. So it's a nice thing to see. But thanks. Good question. All right, so next question is for Sarah. And what are some of the more creative or unique ways that organizations have showcased their sponsors over the last year?
So one thing, or excuse me, one way that I love when organizations do for their sponsors is, on social media and the days leading up to their event, they might feature a sponsor on social media, each day. So let's say you have 12 different sponsors in the 12 days leading up to your event, you can, share out a link directly to that sponsor's website. You can create a custom graphic, of course, that says thank you to that sponsor. Some of the typical ways, of course, are linking to the sponsors on your event page as well as in social media, including that sponsor's name, in your email marketing communication, in some of those outbound text messages that you're sending, and of course on all of the different marketing materials that are related to your event. So if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, make sure that at the end of the presentation you feature those sponsors, or at the end of a video that you might have.
Great. Okay, so next one here for Michael. Do you have any recommendations or best practices on how to find people to fundraise on the organization's behalf?
This is another question I get asked on probably, a majority of the demos that I do. And, a lot of nonprofits are kind of looking for this like magic list that they can send, messaging out to. And I actually go the exact opposite way. I say that that's never a good idea personally. There's no, magic button that you can push that, now you've got 10,000 people in your donor list. What I would recommend is use things like social media and peer-to-peer fundraising and things where you can kind of branch out within the community to then get new advocates, right? Even if people are just registering for the newsletter, that's expanding your list and expressing some interest in the nonprofit, but you want to do it on a grassroots level. And the beauty of modern technology is grassroots means a lot, or something much different now than it did 10 or 20 years ago, right? Grassroots 20 years ago was like a crawl, walk, run. Now a grassroots campaign could possibly go viral. And so what I like about doing things, using social is, the sky's the limit, but there's, I don't want to say a formula, but there's a way to go about engaging new supporters, and buying a list and just blasting out, donation requests is not really the best way to go about that.
Okay, great. Excellent. So let's see, Sarah, what are your top tips, or what tips do you have to help your event stick out to donors when there's so much competition for their attention?
I think what you really need to do to stick out among these events is, really focus on what's going to appeal to your specific community. So is your community a more active community? Are they going to want to get involved in events that are a little bit more physical? Maybe, a walk, run, a bike ride. Or is your audience maybe a little bit younger? Are they going to want to do something that's more viral, creating different dances for TikTok in a way to raise money for your event? I've seen everything from bowl-a-thons to skeet shooting to, typical things like dunk tanks and, fairs and carnivals. But I really think where you're going to find success is by speaking, of course, directly with your supporters in your community and kind of gauging what they're going to be interested in. The more creative that you can get and the more unique is always going to be better. And of course, that might mean, racing rubber ducks down the river in your town, or that might mean, putting a pie in the face of your CEO, or rappelling down the tallest building in your town. Anything that can really have kind of a fun little gimmick is going to incentivize people to want to join in the fun.
All right, great. Let's see, for Michael, when an event ends, is there anything that you've seen people get creative to promote upcoming events or initiatives of the organization? You have this captive audience. Would you, could you be doing something more to set future success?
I mean, sure, there's plenty of ways that you can do that. I think by having, a fundraising calendar, it's a great way to then share that as a great follow-up. I think another really exciting thing that some organizations, and depending on the state, whether you're doing an online auction with someone like GiveSmart and Mobile Cause, or whether you're doing something like a raffle just using a Mobile Cause form, you could actually make it whereas people can purchase tickets for future events and it's an entrance into a raffle, and you could be advertising whatever that prize might be, the raffle prize. If you're going to be hosting an auction 3-6 months down the road, you might have a few of the bigger auction items that are in place. Maybe you want to present that as a way for people to get early dibs on bidding on those items, or at least get a first peek, to be able to see what those items might be. And then another way, unrelated to auctions and raffles and things like that, is talk about the programs that you're doing, right? If you're going to be buying backpacks for kids to go back to school next year, or a new bus, or building a new building, talk about those programs at the end, and also talk about, what's necessary to put that program into place, because that in itself is going to be alluring to a lot of donors to engage and to help jump in and step up to support that next campaign or event, and to participate to help you get to your goal.
All right, great. And you mentioned auctions there, so I'm going to follow up, Michael, first with regarding the auctions. Talked about how an organization auction off a vehicle, and curious how that actually works and allows the organizations to make a quote unquote profit.
So, I mean, it's so, how this is done is different. It varies by, depending on the nonprofit, but most likely, you have a local sponsor. I'll give an example of, your local Ford dealership or Toyota, wants to put up this. They get that donation as a write-off as the organization, as a company. And then most nonprofits typically, are able to raffle or auction that item off. And it's an opportunity for an organization. It doesn't have to be a car. I think that's a large example, but let's even, say a local restaurant, dinner for two. A lot of these items, if you engage your local community, people are going to want to support you, because it's a great way for them to, whether it's a write-off or whether it's an opportunity to support you, it's also a great way for them to get brand awareness in the community, and to show that they're a supporter of community events and things that go on. I don't know if that's the direct answer to your question, Scott. Was there something more that you wanted me to touch on there?
I think that's the basics of it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
engaging. Yeah, okay. Okay, so the next two questions here I have, I'm going to actually ask both of you because I know you have different perspectives and probably different stories for these here. So the first one I want to ask is, our donor base is on the more mature side, often 70 to 80 years old or older. Have you seen similar organizations do well with the technology and digital fundraising with that demographic? Let's start with Sarah.
I definitely think that, this is something that I hear a lot, and I think it's more of a fear that nonprofits have than maybe reality that older generations aren't using technology. Speaking anecdotally, have seen so many older people who love this technology, especially throughout the pandemic, as they've had to connect with some of their loved ones over things like FaceTime and Zoom. It's made them have to learn to, utilize technology, and, it's giving them a way to participate in things that are safe, without having to leave their home, but they can still, attend your event. They can go to a concert or a comedy show. So I wouldn't discount, the older generations being able to adapt to newer technology, and especially, you can keep your donation forms, your event page really simple. You can keep your social media straightforward to the point and really connect with donors at any age.
Yeah,
Great.
and I wanted to chime in with an anecdote of my own. Is, my parents years ago, when my wife and I would be, hanging out with them, go over to their place for dinner, they would, give us grief for being on our phones or on social media. But now on the flip, my parents 71 and 70 respectively, my parents are on their phones more than my wife and I combined. They have more friends on Facebook than either one of us do. And these are This is a generation that I think might have been slower to adapt to the new change, but once they've embraced it, I think, and especially during the pandemic, this has been the only outlet to communicate with, old colleagues and friends. And so, like Sarah said, that fear of, oh, I've got older donors, it's not necessarily as important as making it easy for everyone to contribute. Because if someone's going to write a check and mail it in, having a text to donate option or a donation button on the website or on an event page is not going to deter that person from writing a check and mailing it in.
All right, great. Okay, so I want to ask one more question for both of you, and sort of to wrap up our 2021 and thinking about 2022. Have either of you seen any new fundraising trends emerge since the pandemic that you think most people might be missing out on? So, Sarah?
I think, one of the trends that a lot of people aren't necessarily taking advantage of is, hosting hybrid events. So, as we did see at the beginning of the poll, a lot of people are moving back to in-person events, which of course are great. But I would think of, any opportunities to include supporters virtually as well. So, this might just be a live stream or a video recap of your in-person event, but I would just try to incorporate some things like that. The other trends, of course, are always going to be, social media related. So I definitely think not enough nonprofits are taking advantage of some of the newer social media like TikTok, which of course is going to be really popular with Gen Z. I never want any nonprofits to force themselves into social media that don't match their brand or their donor base. But if your donor base is trending a little bit younger, I would think about how to incorporate some of your content onto TikTok as well. And that might be just kind of, kind of the fun, sillier side of your nonprofit, the people side, introducing younger donors to a nonprofit in general, how you work kind of behind the scenes. Those trends I definitely think are underutilized. So I would dive into both hybrid events and using some of the more emerging social media platforms. Excuse me.
Great. Michael, anything to add?
Yeah. Yeah, one thing really stands out to me because so many organizations do this, but I think they do it a little differently than I would recommend, and that's birthday campaigns. I talked about creative ways to use peer-to-peer fundraising earlier, but this is one of those things where a lot of nonprofits have people for their birthday, anniversary, for some holiday, they are raising money on behalf of their local charity. But what ends up happening is, and nothing against Facebook giving, but they end up using Facebook directly to do that birthday campaign. And as the nonprofit, what you miss out on is it normally takes you around 60 days to get that donation. And a lot of the donor information that you receive, it's really convoluted because you're getting it, from a third party that doesn't take the same or find the same importance of making sure emails and phone numbers and all the stuff that you want for that supporter. So what I would recommend is, no matter what tool you're using, going through the third party and using Facebook giving might seem like a good option, but if you're going to use a tool like MobileCause, having the peer-to-peer example and making sure that you can actually manage that campaign and have your arms around it, I think allows you to obviously get the donation with immediacy within, a day, but also to be able to ascertain as much donor and profile information as you can.
All right, great, thank you. And that's a great place to wrap us up here. So, in summary, in our examples here, as well as the Q&A, we've talked about how virtual fundraising really is here to stay. And even if you have it as a hybrid event or different pieces, definitely continue to consider the virtual fundraiser. Recurring donors, focusing on that retention with your donors is so vital. And then, as Michael mentioned at the end here, your ambassadors and with Sarah with mentioning social media, these are the ways to expand and grow and your reach. So definitely look at these into 2022. That's what we're seeing happening. And with that, That's our 2021 for you. So before we leave, if you're interested in discovering how MobileCause can help maximize your fundraising efforts, please fill out our post-webinar survey or request a demo to see MobileCause in action. Thank you again for attending today, and best of luck in planning and hosting your next successful fundraising event. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you again in next month's live webinar. Thanks, everyone.